Just have to read out a notice here. This board meeting is being live streamed for the convenience of the public at www.okaloosaschools.com. The public may participate in the public comment portions of the meeting by either personal attendance or by calling the school board meeting public participation phone line. A separate seating area has been set aside for the press and public who are in attendance at the meeting in accordance with social distancing guidelines as provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. If calling into the meeting, you should call 850-833-3100. The phone lines will be operational beginning at 6 p.m. on the night of the board meeting, and callers will be transferred into the board meeting during the public comment portion and/or public hearing portion of the meeting only in the order in which calls are received. If you are calling into the meeting to make public comment, please be patient as there may be a wait time while being transferred into the meeting. We do also, in accordance with the governor's executive order on having public meetings, tonight we have the Honorable Linda Ivanchek, the Honorable Dr. Diane Kelly, the Honorable Dewey Destin, and myself, and the Honorable Mr. Marcus Chambers, who are in attendance tonight, and the Honorable Dr. Lamar White is attending via telephone. So with that going, we're going to go down to changes to agenda and approval. We do have some changes, and we do have a discussion agenda. Added item 10.1, revised for Okaloosa County School District 2020-2021 school calendar. Added item 10.2, revised payroll calendars for fiscal year 2020-2021. With that being said, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Destin. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. So we'll go down past recognitions, visitors. As you know, Dr. Chapman was here on Thursday. If you would like to see her presentation, you can go back to our workshop and you can view her presentation during the workshop. Now we're down to administrative personnel appointments, and Mr. Chambers will start with item 5.1, appointment of Assistant Principal 1, Crestview High School.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bryant. So it is my honor to bring to the board this evening the recommendation of Dr. Kim Dunn for Crestview High School 10-month AP. I'm just going to read her bio. Dr. Kim Dunn has been an Okaloosa County educator since 1999. To date, she has taught ESE, speech, English 2, English 2 honors, and ACE general paper. Dr. Dunn has earned a master's in educational leadership. In addition, she has received her doctorate in educational leadership. Dr. Dunn is also a former Okaloosa County instructional coach. During this time, she and the literacy team at Crestview High were awarded Literacy Team of the Year for the state of Florida. Dr. Dunn believes that all students are capable of learning and that holding high expectations for both teachers and students is key to successful outcomes. Finally, Dr. Dunn is committed to working with and alongside administrators, faculty, staff, and students in order to build the best opportunities available in order to achieve and maintain success for Crestview High School. Dr. Dunn comes from a long line of educators. She's also a product of the Okaloosa County School District and graduated from Crestview High School. Dr. Dunn has 3 daughters, Lauren, Emily, and Carly, and 6 grandchildren. So I bring to you Dr. Kim Dunn.
All right, thank you. And at this time, I'm going to pass the gavel to my vice chair, Dr. Kelly. And I would like to make the motion that we recommend this promotion from the superintendent.
I'll second.
Thank you. And with that, I'll take the gavel back. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and it carries unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Dunn.
First and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Chambers for this recommendation and to you, the board, for your vote of confidence. Thank you very much. I'm beyond excited to begin this next adventure at the school I love so dearly. I'm equally excited to join one of the best administrative teams in the district led by the head bulldog, Mr. Day. There are so many others to thank who played a huge role in getting me to this point in my career. A couple of them are here with me. I wish to lovingly thank my hero, my rock, and my biggest supporter, my dad, Joe. I also want to thank my little brother, who was always in my corner, whether he knows it or not, Jody. Y'all may know him. Thank you to my sister, Stephanie, and my baby brother, Patrick, for always being supportive. And although she is no longer with us, I know my mom is here in spirit. I'm very fortunate to have such a wonderful, supportive family, and I especially want to thank my daughters, Lauren, Emily, and Carly. They're my biggest cheerleaders and my biggest critics. I grew up in Crestview, and I attended Northwood Elementary School, Richburg Junior High, and proudly graduated from Crestview High. So did my parents. So did my siblings and my children. I come from a long line of educators and a family that cherishes and supports every aspect of education. In fact, my great-grandfather, Jim Miller, he donated the land and the lumber for the Miller School. It closed in 1915 when Baker's School opened up. So we've been around for a while. The road that led me here wasn't easy, but I'm a firm believer that with hard work, perseverance, and determination, your dreams can come true. I am honored, blessed, and thrilled to begin the school year in my new position, and I once again thank you all for the opportunity. Once a bulldog, always a bulldog. Thank you.
All right. Congratulations.
Ms. Dunn, if you come forward, and if your family would come forward, and Mr. Bryant and Mr. Dave, you join me back here so we can socially distance. Social distance? Yes, sir. So we'll come back here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
While we're waiting for the next item to come, the next group to come through, I will like to remind you that we do have public hearing at 6:15 that's scheduled, but we will get through this part of it before we go into public hearing. So those that might be here for the public hearing part of it, give us just a few moments. Okay, so we're now down to item 5.2, approval of Assistant Principal 1, Baker School, recommended by the superintendent for approval. Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, sir. Once again, board, it's my honor to bring before you Mr. Victor Mann for the 10-month AP position at Baker School. Victor Mann is a proud product of Okaloosa schools, having attended Valparaiso Elementary, Ruckle Middle School, as well as Niceville High School, where he played soccer, graduating in 2001. After majoring in criminal justice at Troy University and working in corrections for a year, Mr. Mann changed career paths to education, where he began coaching and substituting. He got his first teaching job at Shoal River Middle School in 2011 before transferring to Niceville High School in 2012, where he spent 7 years teaching American government, U.S. history, and world history, while also coaching football and soccer. After earning his master's in educational leadership from the University of West Florida, he left Niceville High School and took a Dean of Students position at Baker School. Victor lives in Niceville and has 2 children, Lindsay and Victor. And I bring before you Mr. Victor Mann.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. And with that being said, I need a motion to approve this appointment.
I so move.
Thank you, Ms. Ivanchek. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The appointment is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Van.
Thank you very much. I want to start off by telling you all how very humble I am. It's still not real to me to be in this position. I want to first by starting off and thanking the board for all the incredible work you do and the amount of time and effort that you guys all take out to put forth to our school district. It takes a lot of thought and process to govern all the different facets that goes on in the school district and its operations. So thank you all very much, as well as our assistant superintendents and our superintendent of schools, Mr. Chambers, personally also for you being a mentor to me my whole educational career. You've been a great educational leader towards myself, giving me a lot of advice, whether I like to hear it or not, to help me reach my goals, and I truly appreciate that. Thank you very much. Also, I would like to thank my family for always supporting me. My mother, who was in education and taught in the district for many years, has always been supportive, as was my father, very supportive of my goals and pushing me to always take the next step and never be complacent with where I was personally or professionally. So I want to thank them and the rest of my entire family. Then on to Baker School. Being in a new environment's not always the easiest thing, but the entire staff, from our custodial staff, our teachers, our faculty, all the way up to Mr. Martello have been incredible to me and made me feel just as welcome, whether I was originally from Baker or not. And so a special thanks to Mr. Martello for guiding me and nurturing my development this past year as the Dean of Students, and also having the faith to allow me to help lead the Gators through the swamp. Go Gators.
All right, congratulations
Thank
again.
you.
So,
Family wants to come up?
Good to see you. I've seen you for so long. You want me up there? Okay.
Mr. Martello, you want to come back here and see?
that worked out perfectly. We're at 6:15, so that means we are now down to public hearing. And so, Mr. McInnes, I believe I'm going to pass it over to you, sir.
The school board is now in public hearing to consider a number of budget items tonight. Item 17.1 is required local effort millage, which includes prior period funding adjustment millage of 3.7870 mils.
Okay. So, is there anybody here to speak about item 17.1? Okay. Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, I need a motion to approve the required local effort millage rate.
I'll move.
Thank you, Ms. Ivanchek. A second, please.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the motion passes unanimously. Mr. De-
17.2 is the basic discretionary millage. The rate is 0.7480 mils.
Is there anybody here to speak about this item? Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, I need a motion to approve item 17.2.
Also move.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. A second?
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and item 17.2 passes unanimously.
17.3 is the capital outlay millage rate, 1.5000 mils.
Okay. Is there anybody here to speak on this particular item? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
Mr. Destin makes the motion to approve. A second, please.
I'll second.
Dr. Kelly makes a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the motion carries unanimously.
17.4 is the total millage levy of 6.0350 mils.
Is there anybody here to speak on this particular item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
I'll move we approve.
Mr. Destin makes the motion. I need a second, please.
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the motion carries 5-0.
Item 17.5 is Resolution 20-04, adopting the tentative millage rates for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Is there anybody here to speak on this particular item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
I'll move it.
Ms. Ivanchek makes the motion. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Hearing none, I need, Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the motion carries 5-0.
Agenda item 17.6 is the Okaloosa County School District Preliminary and Tentative Budget General Fund. The amount is $334,078,504.16.
All right, is there anybody here to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
Mr. Destin makes the motion to approve. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0.
Item 17.7 is Okaloosa County School District Preliminary and Tentative Budget Special Revenue Funds Food Service for fiscal year 2020-2021 in the amount of $17,817,176.96.
Is there anybody here to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
I'll move we approve, Chairman.
Mr. Destin makes the motion. A second, please.
I'll second it.
Ms. Ivanchek seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0.
Item 17.8 is Okaloosa County School District Preliminary and Tentative Budget Special Revenue Funds Federal Programs for fiscal year 2020-2021 in the amount of $24,720,809.68.
Is there anybody here to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
Mr. Destin makes the motion. A second, please.
I'll second.
Dr. Kelly seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0.
Item 17.9, Okaloosa County School District Preliminary and Tentative Budget Debt Service Fund for fiscal year 2020-2021 in the amount of $6,402,840.76.
Okay, is there anybody here to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Ms. Vancheck makes the motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Second.
Dr. Kelly got in there, so she makes a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0.
Item 17.10, Okaloosa County School District Preliminary and Tentative Budget Capital Project Funds for fiscal year 2020-2021 in the amount of $48,017,215.88.
Okay, is there anybody here to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes the motion. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Dr. Kelly seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0.
Item 17.11, Okaloosa County School District Preliminary and Tentative Budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. Total summary budget, $431,036,547.44.
All right, is there anybody here to speak on this particular item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. A second, please.
I'll second it.
A second, Ms. Vancheck. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0.
Item 17.12, Resolution 20-05, adopting the Okaloosa County School District Preliminary and Tentative Budget for fiscal year 2020-2021.
All right, is there anybody here to speak on this particular item? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
I'll move it.
Ms. Vancheck makes a motion. A second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Destin makes the second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. McInnes, and thank you to everybody for all those resolutions there. And so we're moving down to public comment now, and that's 6.1, and we do have a blue card. We do have somebody who is on the phone, so that will be the first one. And the name I have here is Joshua Ashley from 1207 North Bayshore Drive in Valparaiso. And when he gets on, Mr. McInnes, if you would explain the rules once we know that person is on the phone.
You've got the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and address for the record. You are live with the school board.
Sure, this is Josh Ashley at 1107 North Bayshore Drive in Valparaiso.
Okay, Mr. Ashley, Mr. McInnes is going to explain the rules for public comment, so if you would just hear him, and then when he's done, I'll give you the time that you're allotted.
Sure thing.
Mr. Ashley, you'll have 4 minutes to make your presentation, and I'll give you a 15-second warning before your time expires.
Okay. Thanks for taking my call. I'm currently on quarantine due to a known exposure of COVID, but so far it looks like my immediate family is doing okay. I know the board has spent much of the last couple months working very hard on trying to make our schools safer during the COVID pandemic, and I want to sincerely thank you for your efforts. I know these are unprecedented times, and trying to transform our school system to deal with the worst pandemic of our lifetime is incredibly challenging. But with that said, I've been disheartened to see that the steps you've taken appear to have been severely limited by political pressures. For example, masks should not be optional in our school hallways. We all know it's impossible to practice social distancing in that environment, especially when trying to navigate a secondary school between the belts. And we must normalize the practice of masking up in situations like that. Lunches should be brought into classrooms in order to minimize movement throughout the building. Half of the Marlins baseball team just tested positive despite millions spent on protections at the pro level, and yet we're somehow moving forward with fall sports in our county. And most critically, we shouldn't be asking our parents and students to choose between an all-online or all-in-person experience. We're fragmenting our school district without appreciably improving the safety of our schools. Many school districts across the country will be adopting a hybrid model this fall, where students go in person 2 or 3 days a week on a rotating schedule and work online for the remainder of the week with the guidance of some dedicated online teachers who work with the in-class teachers. This would be far better and safer than what the school district is moving forward with in almost every respect. Every student would have the same educational experience. Class sizes could be reduced without needing to acquire more real estate, allowing for social distancing. We could utilize the strengths of both in-person teaching and modern technology, and perhaps over time work out a revolutionary model for schooling that would just be better than what we all grew up with. Businesses across America right now are innovating and making their core business models better. And we can do that with our education system. And Okaloosa has always been a leader in education, so why are we turning our backs on that now? There are some legitimate concerns about a hybrid model that I'm sure you're aware of, like providing subsidized meals and technology for those students who need them. But there's workarounds there too. We could send food home with kids, and I know the generosity of this community, which I grew up in, especially towards its kids. Throughout my entire life, it convinces me that we can find the resources to make that happen. But we all know why the hybrid model isn't being used, even if some don't want to say it out loud. This pandemic has been politicized. Instead of following the data and advice of public health officials like Dr. Chapman and Dr. Fauci, this school board is taking its marching orders from a president who spent months minimizing the deaths of over 100,000 Americans and counting, and a governor who's hell-bent on pretending that we can all just go back to normal, even as our state has become the worst epicenter for the pandemic on the planet. Look, the data seems to show that kids are pretty low risk of serious complications from COVID-19, but their teachers may not be. Their parents and grandparents may not be. And managing outbreaks will be more difficult than many realize. I've been tested a few times now for COVID, and each time it takes almost a week to get results back. Look, I just don't want to explain to my kindergartner who's about to enter Lewis in a few weeks why his teacher got sick and maybe died a couple months into the school year just to satisfy a partisan political demand to approximate normal, whatever that means. I again thank you for the work you've already done, and as you move forward, I hope you're able to rise above these political pressures and act in the best interest of the entire community, using evidence, science, and reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Do we?
Send the second call through.
Again, thank you
This is the
for the work you've
Okaloosa
done.
County School
As you move forward, I hope you're able to rise above these political
Hello?
Yes, can I get you to turn your radio down or your television down, please?
Yes, yes.
Because we're slightly ahead of that. Thank you. This is the
Okay.
Okaloosa School Board Public Comment Line. Please state your name and address for the record, and you're live with the school board.
Hi, yes, my name is Ilea Rivas. I live on Eglin Air Force Base, and I just wanted to second everything that the caller right before me has mentioned. I believe everything that he said strongly, and also as far as going back, if we are all in the school together, I'm speaking as a substitute and as a mother, to make masks mandatory. I just think that is so important based upon all the scientific evidence, and I would just really feel more comfortable knowing that was going to happen, to know that my children and I were going to be safe. And everything else that I was going to say was just completely covered by the caller before me. And I just agree 100% with everything that he said. And I would appreciate so much if everyone could take that into consideration. And I just want to thank all of you tremendously for your efforts in this unprecedented time, something that none of us had ever been through before. And I appreciate all of your hard work and everything that you've all been doing. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to call in tonight.
You have the third caller.
Okay.
Put the call through, please. This is the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and address for the record, and you're live with the school board.
Thank you. Alyssa Bentley, Antioch Road. I just wanted to, throw my hat in for Mr. Ashley and the secondary caller. I agree with them. I agree with their sentiment. I feel like we are possibly hurting our children who are choosing possibly to stay at home or want a modified schooling option. I haven't heard anything about choir and band, whether those were going to be in place this year. And so I just wanted to say that I really thought that the first caller, Mr. Ashley's points were great, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your call. Thank you for participating tonight.
Any other callers? Anybody from the other rooms? Is that our last caller, John?
Okay. So we're going to move on down to Section 7, Committee and Staff Reports. Okay.
Another caller.
Okay. Forgot there is a delay, so that was my fault.
Put them through whenever you're ready.
Huh? Okay.
We have one call coming in and two more in the queue.
Okay, that's good. That's why we have them.
Don't worry about it.
This is the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and full address for the record, and you're live with the school board.
Yes, my name is Amy Downs. I live at 2834 Atoka Trail in Crestview, Florida. I actually would like to disagree with the callers that called before me. My boys go to two different schools. I work at a third separate school. I've been a substitute. I've been a para. One of my boys is in the ESE system, and he's been in that system for 4 years now. They can't do online school all the time. They can't even do online school part of the time for some of these kids. They need that in-person teacher. Our other son, he just didn't respond well to online. I don't think a hybrid system is a good theory. I think the way you guys had it set it up worked really well. Parents got a choice, and I think you guys gave us quite a few choices. I don't think that masks should be mandatory for kids either. Us adults that are wearing them, even while going shopping, for some of us by the time we get out, are short of breath or dizzy, and asking a child to wear a mask for 8 hours a day just is not realistic. We appreciate everything you guys are doing, and we know you're in a tough spot, and I hope you guys can make the choices that need to be made, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for calling.
Okay, go ahead and send in the next caller. Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and address for the record. You're live with the school board.
My name is Brenda Franco, and I'm at 1109 Coral Drive in Niceville. I know that this is a very hard decision to be made for a lot of parents. I know several who are struggling with trying to find the right thing to do for their child to ensure that their education doesn't suffer during such an important time as this. There are students who absolutely aren't motivated enough for one reason or another, have issues that cause them to be delayed, who will never do well if they're not in a controlled situation with the guidance that they need to move forward. That being said, there are parents of these children who are scared to death to send the kids back. I don't know what the right answer is, and I don't think there's a right answer for every single one, but I think people would feel better if they knew exactly the answers to the questions that the gentleman, the first caller, made. Are they going to have to wear masks? And should it be the same for every class? And what about choir and some of these classes that maybe masks just won't be appropriate for? The lunchrooms, all of these things, I know you're already thinking about what can be done. But remember, the more information you can give these parents, the better they're going to feel about making decisions. And that's pretty much what I need to say. I think every bit of information you can get out is going to make this an easier transition for not just the students, but the parents. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Franco.
Okay, go ahead and send the next caller.
Appreciate your time.
If I can get you to turn down what you're listening to, please, so that we can't hear that in the background, because it'll cause a feedback.
Okay.
You've reached the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and full address for the record, and you're live with the school board.
I live at 707 32nd Street in Niceville. So I don't know that if it's possible with the mandates that kids have to go back to school. I have a 6-year-old that I have to choose whether to send back to school or not. And just like last year, the seniors missed their senior year. Part of it, well, my kindergartner missed half of her year, and that was a big year too. But as a single mom, and I have a father who is my daughter's world, and he is 71 and has one kidney, diabetes, heart condition. If I send her back to school, I have a hard time. I probably won't let her be around him, and that's very hard because we just don't know enough about that they're not transmitting it to others. I feel for all the teachers that have to go back to school. I do appreciate what you all are doing, and I know that, the state mandates a lot of what goes on. I do wish that we could either do hybrid, or I really wish that we could just all stay home this year. I know that there are several things that people have talked about, the kids need to socialize, and my daughter's 6. She does need that. She's a single child. She hasn't had that since we closed school last year, or, earlier in the year. But to me, I would rather choose that my child doesn't socialize over her dying or her giving the virus to somebody else. I just am not sure how we can keep 6-year-olds safe, and I really do believe that they should all wear masks. I don't know that that's going to be a big problem for my 6-year-old. She likes to wear the mask, but I do believe that it's just hard with the younger ones. I'm just not sure how we're going to keep them safe, and how that's possible for one teacher to be able to keep them safe. Thank you.
Ma'am, would you do me a favor? Your name did not come through clearly when you started. Could you tell us your name one more time?
It's Monica Traxler.
Okay.
Traxler.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for calling in tonight.
welcome. Thank you.
Send the next one, please. This is the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and address, full address for the record, please, and you're live with the school board.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Tony Rivas. I'm at 1047 Magnolia Drive, Eglin Air Force Base.
Go ahead, Mr. Rivas.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate. I understand that the hybrid system and how we're going to proceed with the actual educational process is difficult, and we're on board with that. We're going to be flexible, but one thing that we are not flexible about is the need for masks to be mandatory. The science is there. I heard someone earlier say that they get dizzy and can't breathe through a mask after a few hours. My daughter has asthma. She's really bad. She wears a mask just fine without any issues when we go out. She's never been busy. It's never kicked off an asthma attack. I myself am immunocompromised, so I'm very likely to get sick and it to affect me worse than the average person. So that's a huge concern for our family in general. And I think it's just a no-brainer. I think to even be considering it this long is irresponsible. It has to be done. We have to have masks mandatory. If I talked to dozens of parents in the neighborhood, at work, and so forth, and pretty much unanimously across the board, everyone wants masks. It's an embarrassment that Florida, with such good school systems, is leading the country pretty much. Almost it flip-flops every day with California, but we're leading the front of the line with the worst COVID-19 epidemic. So, the science is there. We're just ignoring it, and that's a shame.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rivas, for calling in.
Send the next caller, please.
Do we have anybody in person?
This is the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and full address for the record. You're live with the school board.
Yes, sir. Mamele Newkirk. I'm at 101 Poplar Place in Niceville, Florida. My question for the school board was, what happens when the kids go back to school and one person is infected or tests positive for COVID? Is there a plan in place on how that's going to be dealt with, and whether the parents are going to be notified, and the quarantine period? Thank you.
Did you want to answer?
So I appreciate that question. So the answer is, if a student or an employee, let's just say is in a classroom, tests positive, so the very first thing that would happen is the school would be in contact with our district office, and the district office would be in contact with Dr. Chapman from the health department, and from there, contact tracing would occur. And there's a likelihood that, depending on whether it was a student or the teacher, there's a possibility that the classroom as a whole could go into quarantine. But the health department would be the ones who would dictate that, and the ones who would lead that effort with our assistance, of course. And there are parameters in place of how long the students who are a contact would have to stay out, as well as the affected person who actually is the positive person. But we do have a process in place for that. It is on our webpage as well, in terms of how we're going about this. But it's a great question, and I would like to say to the school board, as some of these calls are coming in, which I think we all appreciate and want this input, and I think it's critical to hear from our families. I will be sending out a letter to families tomorrow. It'll be very similar to the letter that I sent to the employees the other day. A lot of the information right now is on okaloosaschools.com, where you'll see the reopening plan, the frequently asked questions document, as well as My School Online information. But I think the letter that we will send out to families will kind of let you know exactly where we are to date, what will be happening over the next 5 weeks, as well as all the safety precautions that we are putting into place. So once again, I absolutely appreciate all the questions, and I think the input that we get, I think that we still would be wise to take this input even as we travel over the next 5 weeks.
Chairman, if I might just have a brief comment, and we may have more people coming, but tonight we have on the agenda a vote to postpone schools till the 31st. And I think the reason for that is to give the superintendent and his staff time to answer the questions that have been brought up tonight. And all of them are complex, from the mask question, how can it be implemented, to the mixed hybrid. You know, at the last workshop, we discussed how people in the IB or the AP curriculum were going to have to, by nature, have a mixed hybrid. Some of the classes have to be done. So I know the superintendent and his staff are looking at all those issues, and so we have given them extra time to come up with the answers to the questions that the folks are asking us tonight, and I look forward to the answers that they will provide for us and the public.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Destin.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling, Ms. Newkirk.
We've lost Dr. White on connection.
Okay. Do we need?
Get him to connect right in just a second.
Okay. And we have one more caller, you said?
And we do have one more going on.
Okay.
Stand by. That phone's gonna ring.
Okay.
Go ahead and hang it up. The button at the bottom. Dr. White, you're back connected? Make sure you can hear us.
Can you hear us, Dr. White?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
All right. Transfer the call, please. Yes, please. Put the call through.
Thank you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okaloosa School Board Public Comment Line. Please state your name and full address for the record. You're live with the school board.
Hi there. My name is Ann Hensey. My address is 4059 Katz with a K, K-A-T-S Court, Destin. Up until this previous week, I have been a almost 20-year resident of Niceville, so now we're starting a new chapter in Destin. And I just called wanting to thank the school board members who invited Dr. Karen Chapman to speak at the school board workshop. I wanted to thank the superintendent for suggesting that we delay the start of the school year, because it's very clear to me, after phone calls to the district as well as ongoing discussions with Dr. Chapman herself, that our move to reopen schools could push our county's positivity rate in the wrong direction. I think that we are at a point where the school board and district leadership needs to decide if it is going to follow the CDC guidelines or if it's going to be influenced by state and federal politics. In conclusion, I would like the district to offer or to consider offering true remote instruction where a live teacher teaches class and students are not placed on an Edgenuity style program. The program through Edgenuity may very well be accredited by the state, but it was designed as a credit recovery program. Our students and faculty deserve better than this.
Thank you, Ms. Hensey.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling in tonight.
Thank you.
Send through the next one, please. You've reached the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. If I can get you to turn down your volume in the back, please, so we don't feedback.
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and full address for the record. You've got the school board live.
My name's Thomas Grant, and I live in Crestview, Florida at 5938 Windtrace Road. And I just wanted to thank everybody for all their hard work this summer and everything that they're doing. But I think it's a choice for the parents if the kids want to wear masks. If they want them to wear masks, then let them wear a mask. I have a kindergarten and a VPK, and they're going to have to wear a mask, and hopefully the teacher will allow them to be kids. We need to give the parents the choice. And I think you're doing a good job with giving parents a choice to go in home or at school. If they don't like it, they can go to Florida Virtue. There's other options they can take. They don't have to go to school here. But I just wanted to say thank you again, and please let the parents make the decision for mask or no mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
This is the Okaloosa the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and full address for the record. You're live with the school board.
Pamela Howard Whitehurst, 18 Warwick Drive, Shalimar. To the school board, I want to first thank you for all that you do for our schools, and I appreciate the tough position that you're in. I was disappointed that the proposed schedule that you are voting on today was not released public or was not made readily available to the public when the announcement was made. Thankfully, I'm savvy enough to understand the agenda system and was able to go in and take a look at the agenda and look at the calendar, but I believe that parents will be surprised when they see the adjustments that are being made to the schedule. Of course, understanding pushing the date does change things, but would have preferred a little bit more transparency so that parents got a chance to see the schedule before the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitehurst.
Through, please. This is the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and address for the record. That's your full address, please. You're live with the school board.
My name is David Bentley, and I live at 4258 Antioch Road in Crestview. My question for the board is, are there plans being made now in contingency terms to handle a massive rise in cases due to our schools being populated again? I understand that there's now a plan in action to offer alternative online school, but if the schools must be shut down again, will the students simply move back to Edgenuity, or is there another plan in the works?
Mr. Chambers, our superintendent, is going to answer your question there to the best of his ability.
Yes, thank you for the question. So two things we have our technology department working on, and let's just say hypothetically the numbers rose not only in Okaloosa County but across the state of Florida, and if for some reason schools were not to start on August 31st because of an outbreak, so we've already talked to our technology department to make sure that we would be ready to deploy the devices similarly to what we did during the last 9 weeks, and make sure that food is also available. We've budgeted through our Edgenuity program as well to be sure that we have enough seats across the school district. The second piece that our technology department is prepared for is if there was a second wave and schools were shut down, that we would be prepared to do similarly to what we did the last 9 weeks. However, under the current model that we're in, with more teacher interaction, with Zoom meetings, with more accountability and support, so to speak, on the online model. The piece that we are currently looking into even more is what has been brought about by parent input is the more virtual model, the synchronous model. Right now, we are looking at it for courses such as IB, AP, band, so for some specialized courses. But we are also preparing through our technology department to strengthen our bandwidth to the fullest capability to where we could zoom into homes and instruct in different ways than the online platform allows. Now that piece is going to take some more time. It's going to take a little bit more coordination with our technology department and schools. So if we were to have to go full online, our current plan would be through our Edgenuity program and Accelerate, but we are also looking into how can we be even more effective with a synchronous model.
Thank you. You answered my question.
Thank you for calling in.
Go ahead and send the next caller.
Eric,
All I can tell you is 2 in the queue. Right now there's only 1.
Okay.
This is the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and full address for the record. You're live with the school board.
Brittany Zick, 130 Twin Oak Drive, Crestview, Florida. I just want to thank the school board for everything that they're doing for our schools during this time, and our administrators at school, communicating. In our household, we have 2 teachers. Our son starts VPK this year, and I think that parents need to decide if children wear masks or not. I have a lot of problem with my 4-year-old having to have half of his face covered at school for 7 hours. There's a difference when you go to the grocery store or something like that than you're in school and your safe place. So I really feel that masks should be left up to the parents. That's all I have to say, and thank everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Zick, for calling in. So with that public comment, we'll move down to Section 7, Committee and Staff Reports, and that was for the workshop only. And now we're down to Section 8, Consent Agenda, and I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so moved.
Dr. Kelly makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the consent agenda passes 5-0. So let's move down to Section 9, and that will be Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. And the first 2 items are informational only, so we'll move down to 9.3, and cleared certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 2020-21 school year. I need a motion to approve.
I move it.
Ms. Vancheck makes a motion. Do I have a second, Mr. Destin? Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. 9.4, out-of-field report for the 2020-21 school year. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0. 9.5, employment separations. I need a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Vancheck. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Vancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. 9.6, personnel recommendations. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes the motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Dr. Kelly makes the second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. 9.7, employee transfers. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Dr. Kelly makes a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. 9.8, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination. I need a motion to approve, please.
I'll move it.
Ms. Ivanchek makes a motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Dr. Kelly makes a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. 9.9, leave without pay. I need a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
A second by Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. So now we are to section 10, discussion agenda items, and so we're at 10.1, revised Okaloosa County School District 2020-21 school calendar, presented by Steve Horton and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Mr. Chambers, would you like to lead us off?
Yes, sir. Thank you. First of all, I do want to say thank you for the individuals who put a lot of time and energy into this plan. So I do want to thank Dr. Hale. I want to thank Mr. Horton and his staff, as well as the union as well. And I do appreciate that the union sent out a survey to their members to see what type of calendar that they would prefer. And also, I do want to say that when you look at this calendar, a few things that we wanted to be sure that happens, and this comment right here kind of dovetails also with the next item, the payroll calendar. You know, one of the things that we wanted to be certain that we did do was ensure that employees did receive an August paycheck. Secondly, a lot of input came in also from parents to make sure that we have as many student days as possible. I think that's very important. At this last board workshop, I think one of the directions from the board was, you know, let's try not to go too far into the month of June. So I think we were able to accomplish that as well. And then also having some conversations with you as board members. We wanted to look at the month of April, because April is kind of a long month, and see what we could do there. So we looked at that as well. I do want to give a few highlights. So first of all, the first day of school, as we'd know, in this calendar would be August 31st. But the first teacher report day would be August 20th. Prior to that, the 17th, 18th, and 19th would be flex days for teachers. So August 20th would be the first day for teachers. That week of August 24th, there would be trainings that would be occurring, COVID-related trainings for our teachers and our employees and administrators during that week. I do want to highlight that Thanksgiving in this calendar would have 2 days of where we would be in school like we've done in the past, but we haven't done for a while. So Monday and Tuesday would be student days and employee days. And then that Wednesday during Thanksgiving would be the first holiday. Also, spring break in this calendar is in a different time frame. We moved it to April, but we wanted to also make sure that we avoided all published testing calendars. So we looked at that as well. And then the last day of school for students would be June 9th, and the last official day of for employees, teachers, would be June 14th. So that's a quick rundown of this calendar. And I do appreciate the work that went into getting this ready for the board tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. So with Mr. Chambers' statements, I need a motion to approve this, the item 10.1. Do I have a motion to approve?
I will move we approve, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Destin. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Savanchek. The floor is open to discussion, and I'll start with Ms. Savanchek if you'd like to start first.
Well, yes, I want to thank those who spent a lot of time on this calendar. I remember as a teacher, one of the most controversial things was the calendar. When do we start? When do we end? When are we off? I hope that the public will understand that we cannot fit the needs of every person or their requests. We've used the word unprecedented. We all know that. So everybody has to be flexible. I looked through the calendar. I think most of the major dates were preserved and so forth. And so I hope that everyone will be flexible with us and go with this. I do believe we need to move back the time of our starting so that we can adequately prepare and get things ready. But I think overall the calendar is a very good one. I know we spent many years trying to end first semester before the winter holiday, but obviously that can't happen. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that have to work. But to me, this is the best thing that we can do, and I think that we have considered every stakeholder in this calendar, you know, the student, the parent, the employee. I am really glad that we are being sensitive to the employees in the way that they get paid, because they are not paid throughout the summer in increments. And so that's good. So that's why I'll vote for it. I think it's important that we go this way. It's the best that we can do at this time. And I know we've all spent a lot of time on this. I've spent studying this, but I do believe it's the best way we can go with what we know at this time. And that's all that, you know, you can ask of us to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Savanchek. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. And I too think that we really were rushed in a sense with all of the guidelines from the state, but every other school district was having to make the same kinds of concessions that we were having to make. So I think when we put the parameters out there that we are not alone, everyone is having to face the same crisis in the same way, within the same parameters at the same time. I think we've done the best that we can. I hear the employees who talk to us about hating to give up their 2 days at Thanksgiving, but I appreciate that spring break was moved to April. I think I talked to the superintendent about that. And just to end on a little funny note, I know it's a very serious thing when you tamper with the calendar, but I see now that we have no days out in October. I may have to make my own holiday in there because I have a grandbaby due in October, so I may make my own holiday then. But with all of those things being said, I'll just make one other quick comment to the callers who called in about the mask, if you wouldn't mind, if this is the best time you think. All of you who've heard me now, I think the last 3 meetings, workshops and board meetings included, I've been an advocate for masks, and I still am. And I think the latest metrics that Dr. Chapman sent us today even said, I believe it was on page 7 of her update for us today, that there is an ongoing need to maintain physical distancing and wear cloth face masks. And the next paragraph down, there's a growing body of evidence that cloth face coverings do work for the virus. The World Health Organization and the CDC recommend that all people wear cloth coverings in settings where they're not around folks in their own household. But with that, I have sincerely given a lot of thought to this, and I've listened to all sides. And it dawned on me today that we have a lot of mandates in our history that we've put out there, and some that I've been privileged, if you can call it that, to be a principal when some of those things came down. Like I remember when I went to Bruner Middle School, I inherited a newly passed by the SAC before Mr. Nobles left, recommendation or mandate that we go to school uniforms. But immediately behind that, we also gave an opt-out. I remember being at that same school when we had a lawsuit about pledging to the flag. And I remember we came up with an opt-out. So I don't know why we couldn't have mandated masks with an opt-out for just like those parents who called in saying that their child had asthma, couldn't wear it all day, or they had an ESE child, or some who've spoken to me who have a child with ADHD, or they have another inherent health situation that might require an opt-out. So I just throw that out there for you and your staff to perhaps consider. In my mind, having wrestled with this for many weeks now and tried to be a board member to do due diligence and to be a voice for many people that contact us. I know we all have people that talk to us. To me, I think that's probably the most reasonable and rational thing this little mind could come up with. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Chairman. I know that some of the callers were concerned that we were allowing politics to enter into our decisions. I think this motion to change the calendar shows how hard we are trying to keep politics out of it. Because after all, we have strong direction, both national level and state level, that we need to open schools right now. The facts on the ground don't allow us to do that. And to make a rational decision to not do that, I'm proud of the board and the superintendent that we are going to try to move forward and come up with some of the solutions that were brought to our attention in our public testimony tonight. The mask is a hard one, and we are going to have to address, and we have time now to look at it in a scientific, rational manner. Scientifically, there's really no doubt we should make everybody wear a mask. I'm not sure that we're able to do that from a practical side. So that nice Solomon-like decision of how we
Don't split the baby.
do with the baby, we're going to leave to Mr. Superintendent and his staff at the moment, and I hope that they will come back, and I have faith they're going to come back with something. But we need to move to as much compliance with wearing masks as we possibly can without telling our teachers and our staff members to do something that's impossible. So I will support this motion, and I appreciate that we are going forward to try to address the problems and the issues that we know are there and that the call-ins gave us to think about.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Destin?
That'll cover it.
As always, thank you. Dr. White, any comments regarding item
Thank you.
10.1?
Thank you, Chairman Bryant. I guess what I would say is that I would like to encourage the public and the viewers and listeners to take a look at the workshop presentation that we had on Thursday, and particularly the presentation given to the school board by Dr. Karen Chapman, who of course is the director of the Okaloosa County Public Health Unit. And Dr. Chapman spoke at length about what I think she defined as the crisis level in Okaloosa County regarding the positivity rate in COVID testing. And also she spoke at length about the high utilization of our area hospitals. And so because of the facts that were presented by Dr. Chapman, I certainly am going to support the superintendent's recommendation to move back by a couple of weeks the school start time. So that's really all I have, Mr. Bryant. Thank you.
All right. And with that, any other discussion? If not, let's vote. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0. 10.2, revised payroll calendars for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move. I'll second.
Dr. Kelly got the motion. Mr. Destin got the second. Any discussion? I'll start with Ms. Ivanchek.
Yes, I just want the public to understand that we have employees that come in all different ways. Like we have those who work 12 months, we have some that work 10 months, some are work hourly, all kinds of things. So when you talk about, a compensation for all of those, we have employees that haven't been working for the summer, some have, and so forth. So when you have to make a change like this in how we compensate, it's very challenging. And I certainly appreciate Ms. Scallon and her group and everyone who sat down with this, and it's complex, because I know I looked at what we approved back in April on some things and what we were doing now, and so I just want the public to understand. But I know one of the things I mentioned is that everybody get paid, and I appreciate the superintendent looking at that. That's a real important piece as we're going in to let these employees make sure that they're getting compensated with everything going on financially in our area. But also, I think it's nothing like a payday for a morale booster heading back into the new school year. So thank you so much for everyone that was a part of this. I think this looks very good. Thank you.
Dr. Kelly?
No, just an echo of thanks to Rita and her staff, because I think having an August check is very important to everyone. So thank you for working on that.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Mr. Destin?
Just in support of it.
Okay. Dr. White, any comments on item 10.2?
Well, just certainly that I'm supportive of it, and I appreciate all the numbers of hours that went into attempting to revise all of these calendars, and certainly appreciate the work by Mrs. Scallon and Dr. Hale and the rest of the staff in trying to accomplish this. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. Okay, with that being said, Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you
Yes.
vote? Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0. 10.3, there was no items moved, any other items moved from consent agenda. So we're now to 11.1, construction program owners representative business. And Mr. Destin, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman. As we discussed at the workshop, we are going forward with the projects that were enumerated on the agenda that we sent to you. And I'm very glad that we got the colors right at the Crestview Stadium on the fence. So I don't have any further report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Destin. So we'll move down to section 12, information technology seat management contract, and both of these are voting items. So 12.1 is IT seat management outsourcing agreement, contract modification agreement, change order 14 between the School Board of Okaloosa County and CACI NSS Incorporated. I need a motion to approve, please.
Move we approve.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0. 12.2, IT seat management outsourcing agreement, contract modification agreement, change order 15 between the School Board of Okaloosa County and CACI NSS Incorporated. I need a motion to approve.
I'll move it.
Ms. Ivanchek makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the motion carries 5-0. So we're at section 13, attorney's business, and we are voting on item 13.1, which is a renewal of agreement for professional services between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Resolutions in Special Education Incorporated. And Mr. McInnes did speak on this at the workshop, so I need a motion to approve.
I'll move it.
A motion by Ms. Ivanchek. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
And a second by Dr. Kelly. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0. Mr. McInnes, any other business tonight?
Further report tonight.
Thank you. So we'll move now to section 14, superintendent's business. Mr. Chambers, you have the floor.
Yes, sir, and I will be short and sweet. I do want to thank you, the board, because as you know, there's a lot of there's a lot of parties that come into play to do what we did tonight in terms of the school calendar, in terms of the payroll calendar. But I also appreciate the fact is that we have a very active board that I know Dr. Hale, speaking with you all, even some of you on Friday, some of you on Saturday, and I absolutely appreciate the time that you all give to make these important decisions. So that is something that I'm extremely proud of, and I appreciate each and every one of you for that, and I appreciate the input. I also want to say, I think everybody knows the last several months has been trying for everyone in the school system to include the students, to include the parents, to include the community. And Ms. Ivanchek said it well earlier that if you have one group may think this, one group may think that, and you're not going to please everybody, but what we have to do is keep the safety of our employees and our students in mind at all times. And the other thing that I appreciate about this board is that because a decision has been made right now, that doesn't mean that we're not still listening to our employees, to our parents and community. We're going to continue to listen, continue to make decisions as we go forward. We heard from a number of folks today about masks. I think masks are they're a big deal. And I think there are people on all sides of the spectrum of masks. And I know just like you all, you've had emails, you've had phone calls at the grocery store. People talk about that. And in some parts of the country, they've just made up their mind, and then that's how it's going to go moving forward. I think for this board, and I know myself, we want to continue to listen and make the right decision for our students. And I do pledge that. We'll definitely stay moldable on this topic, and we will make the best decision for our students and our employees. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. So now we'll move to section 15 and board members' announcements. And I am going to start with Dr. White, who is on the phone. So Dr. White, you're up first.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Destin?
Thank you, Chairman. And I just have a request, and I'll direct it to the superintendent. I know that all of us have noticed that we are doing an awful lot of purchasing on an emergency basis. We all understand why that has to happen. On this agenda, we had $132,000 for infrared thermometers that we all understand that we need to have. The only thing that concerns me is it kind of takes the checks and balances that are built into our system out. And I would request that the superintendent, if he could direct Ms. Scanlon to email us when we're about to make one. I really don't see the chain that goes along with usual purchases where it went through this person, that person, this person. I understand that we have to make emergency purchases, and I also understand that we hope that most of it's going to be covered by the CARE Act money. But it would be good, at least for this board member, to see when those are going, and it's a budgetary move. Steve showed us face guards that we're trying to acquire at the workshop. And I know that the math on those is going to turn into quite a lot of money. So just for my own peace of mind, if we could just, when we're making emergency purchases, do an email to the board members so that we know what's being spent and where the money's coming from until we get reimbursed, hopefully.
And absolutely, we'll do that.
Thank you. That's all for me tonight.
Dr. Kelly?
That just pinged my memory. I did ask the cost of that particular item, and I think I was told $6 or $8 each, but I did not get that total round figure, which was pretty big.
For panels.
Yes,
and I think there are 3 panels in most of them, so yeah, that can be a lot of money.
It's a lot. Thank you. That's all I have.
Ms. Vanchek?
Yes. I also have a request, Mr. Superintendent. If people have been watching, the last 2 workshops have been what you might classify as marathons. And that's fine. Whatever it takes to do the people's work here and get things fine. But I've noticed that the board has been, when we'd have meetings, there have been some things that have been presented that were not on the agenda. They were brought to us in kind of not expecting it, and they got pretty lengthy, some PowerPoints and then some other presentations. And I just would appreciate, and maybe my fellow board members too, if we would have a heads up on that, if possible. I know sometimes you can't, but it gives us some opportunity to kind of estimate our time and also to look at some things in the big picture. So if the staff could make sure that we get an email in advance if possible, I would appreciate that. Thank you,
Absolutely.
sir. And one other thing I just want to talk about, the Public Schools Foundation is doing some cram the van and those things, starting to take up school supplies. Now that we've voted on the date for school to start, we need to ask for help with getting those school supplies in. So I appreciate the public listening for those dates. And I know we just had one up at Staples in Crestview this weekend, and those will be coming along in the dates as we move forward. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And my final comments are, again, it's a daunting task that's before us during these times. And I am honored to be able to sit on a board, 5 of us and a superintendent who are really, truly trying to do what we feel is the best interest for everybody. And we are not going to make everybody happy. We understand that. But I do believe that we are trying our best to do, with the cards that are handed us, to do the right thing. And, you know, it's not an easy task. But serving on this board, I will tell you, I serve with 4 other board members who truly have the best interest of the schools in hands, our teachers, our students, everybody. And Mr. Chambers, I know you and your staff have worked hard likewise to get to this point. I would also like to recognize our 12-month employees. Believe it or not, we've had employees in the schools. They didn't get a break. They were there on the front lines. And, you know, we thank everybody that's been doing their jobs and everything, but our 12-month employees who have been in the schools, our principals, assistant principals, bookkeepers, data processing, I mean, all those folks have been nonstop. So I did put a little post out on Facebook the other day, but I did want to comment on those particular employees. We thank all of our employees, but there has been some that have been there. They didn't get to go home. They were at the schools. So to those employees, we thank you very much. So with that being said, we'll move down to section 16, and we do have a second public comment, and I believe we do have somebody on the phone.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Mitchell, before we when this person comes on, I'm going to have Mr. McInnes just explain the rules because they are a little different.
This is the Okaloosa School Board public comment line. Please state your name and full address for the record. Speak it to the board.
Hi, this is Nick, 51 Murray Circle in Fort Walton Beach. And I was calling to ask when you'll decide upon the teacher pay raises that Governor DeSantis posted in June.
Can you repeat that question one more time? I didn't. I heard. Obviously, Ms. Scallon heard it, so she's going to come up.
Yes, sir. I was wondering when you're going to discuss and decide upon the teacher pay raises that Governor DeSantis passed in June.
Yes, sir. Those plans, we have to have those plans approved and submitted to the state by October the 1st. So those, that plan will come before the board prior to October the 1st for discussion.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for all you do.
All right, thank you, sir, for calling in tonight. And before I adjourn, I do want to say thank you to everybody who called in tonight. We do always appreciate public input. We can only be a stronger board with the input from our public, and so we do appreciate everybody that called in tonight. So I'm going to go around. Mr. Horton, anything? Ms. Scallon? Dr. Hale? With that, our meeting's adjourned.